There's no magic formula. A good marriage takes hard work.
The secret ingredient to a successful marriage is agape love.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Hello, I am Andrea Luxton, filling in for Pastor Lutz, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. We have an excellent group of panelists here, poised to discuss a topic that impacts most of us. So I would turn to them to speak to us. Introduce.
My name is Bishop Michael Olson, and I serve as the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth.
Hi, I'm Carl Troval. I'm Professor of Ethics and History at Concordia University in Austin, Texas, which is affiliated with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
And I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, serving as the minister of First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas.
Hello, I'm Tony Matthews, and I'm the senior pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
Our topic today asks us why we just can't get along, and particularly in relationship to marriage. From Bill and Linda Gates to Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, well over 50% of marriages end in divorce. Statistics tell us most marriages end after 1 to 2 years, or between years 7 and 8. Why is that? Experts say the most common reported reasons for divorce are lack of commitment, infidelity, and that may not be full-blown adultery, but a Jimmy Carter variety, lust in the heart, financial stress creating tension and disagreement, conflict and arguing, domestic violence, substance abuse, or pornographic abuse. Interestingly, though, the number one most common occurrence is each participant blaming their partners rather than taking any blame upon themselves. The unseen casualty and greatest negative consequence, of course, are the children. Children go through the intense pain of family separations, and the vicious spiral of emotional damage may be inestimable. So we ask our panelists to answer the following. What is the secret ingredient for a successful partnership or fulfilling marriage? Number two, there is no secret ingredient. Marriage is work. Do you agree that you must do the work or it won't work? Number three, how can we really put the other person's need ahead of ourselves? I'm going back to our first two speakers. Dr. Troval.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. 69% of a couple's problem are perceptive. That is, arguments and discussions are not going to resolve those differences. Like your health, you have to work around the reality of those differences in your own lives. This information comes from a guy named John Gottman, PhD. He's an expert in relationship studies. And he has found a method by which he analyzes couples and how they interact with one another, and has come to 94% accuracy in predicting whether a couple will get divorced or not. And his material is excellent. And I'm going to be personal, and my wife and I have gone to marriage counseling because we had issues we were struggling with. And the person who, our therapist, used Gottman's material, and it has been very powerful in helping our marriage. And so I want to just lay that out. It's kind of scary to do that, but I want to do that because I want people to know that it's okay to ask for help. One of the things that John Gottman says, and I'm going to go through the 4 things basically, that when I say hard work, it's not that it's not enjoyable work. I think it is, but it's challenging because you're fighting some of your deepest kind of emotional responses and impulses. So in that way, it's hard work. But the 4 kind of pieces that he suggests are this. Number 1, calm down. Number 2, speak non-defensively. Number 3, validate the other person. And 4, overlearn, practice, practice, practice. Specifically about calming down, is he says that what happens is in a lot of us when we get into disagreements, we get emotionally engaged and we become emotionally flooded. I don't know if you've ever been in an argument, and I mean, we even use words like your blood is boiling, right? One of the things that he recommends is that you cannot have any kind of resolution to any discussion if either of you are emotionally tapped out. Our therapist taught us to even check our beating, our pulse, and to not come and talk to one another. So both of you get the responsibility to say, I call time out, and you can walk away and self-soothe, listen to music, take a walk, whatever you do to self-soothe, read the Bible, whatever you do to calm down, and when your heartbeat is right, then you can come back at it, and it could be even as much as 60 minutes. It's not avoiding the topic, but it's just pushing it down until you both have an ability to come in a peaceful space. Because what happens is you engage and everything goes up, and then you say things you don't want. The other thing, in other words, the point is you're trying to cool down your inner monologue that's going on, that you're being aware of it. The second piece is to speak non-defensively, and defensiveness is what Gottman says is one of the 4 horsemen, 4 apocalyptic horsemen of a marriage. They're marriage killers. Defensiveness, criticism, contempt, and stonewalling, and I won't go into those, but you can read them on the internet. But the point here is that when you're defensive, your arguments intensify. And when you're non-defensive, it leaves the argument. And this is that blame piece that was mentioned in the moderator's statement. The blaming, what happens is when we get blamed or accused, we get defensive and want to defend ourselves. And this is precisely the wrong reaction. The way to approach it is to say, well, that's very interesting. I'll have to think about that. And to accept what the other person is saying, even though it hurts, but to hear that. And to not do the back and blame the other person as well. To listen attentively, don't respond to accusation with accusation, don't deflect blame, accept it. And then the positive piece is to turn to praise and admiration, to say, I appreciate it when you do this. The third piece, validate, is to just acknowledge the other person's concerns. I see that this upsets you, and how is it that I can be helpful? And I want to be here because I want you to be upset. And the last is overlearning, and that is that this takes practice. I mean, it's a daily practice. And part of it is getting connected with one another. And one of the things that my wife and I do every day to try to practice this is my wife suggested this. I love her suggestion. It's called Rose, Rose, Thorn, Bud. And at the end of the day, on our drive home from work, because we work at the same place, we both share a rose of the day and something good that happened, a thorn, something that's, a problem or whatever, and then we share something we're hopeful for, a bud. And it just keeps us in communication on a simple level.
Thank you. Great practical comments.
I really appreciate Dr. Troval's comments. And I've pastored for a number of years and have counseled married couples. I've been married 33 years, and my wife is still teaching me. I'm learning a lot. And I'm going to speak to you just from my experience with couples over the years and some resources that I've read. I think before a couple gets married, it's so important to have premarital counseling. And metaphorically speaking, I always tell couples who come in for the first time that one mistake couples make is that they come in and they look at marriage, they kind of pack, metaphorically speaking, for Hawaii, their whole marriage. And then when they get married, they land in Alaska. They have no, but they're not packed for it. They have all the clothes for Hawaii, but they have nothing for Alaska, metaphorically speaking. And then they find themselves, out of whack. So I really think that premarital counseling is important, and we counsel our couples. We tell them there are 3 outcomes: that we can do the marriage, the ceremony. We encourage them to wait and get more counseling, and sometimes we say no. And whenever it's a no, it's because we see that biblically there's something missing. Jesus tells us, or the Scripture tells us, that husbands should love their wives like Christ loved the church. So after you are married, we have to have that that model that is found in Ephesians 5, where the husband loves the wife, that sacrificial, agape, unconditional love. And I think couples, it's tough to do, it is hard work, but having that sacrificial love is so important. And I think if, practically speaking, if a husband treats his wife like a queen and she treats him like a king, typically you can get over the challenges. You will have a lot of challenges, a lot of conflict, and how we manage conflict is so important in a marriage. I always try to draw a triangle, and I have a big triangle, husband, wife, and God at the top. And I tell the couples that the closer each one of them moves to God and God, that relationship, the closer they get together. So God has to be a part of that marriage. Love and commitment are key. Respect and forgiveness, and listening. My wife years ago, I mean, she put me on, she checked me because I like to solve problems. She came home one day and she was upset with something that happened at school. I went right into problem solving mode. I want to fix it. And then when she started talking to me, I started telling her what to do. And she stopped me midstream, said, "Tony, please do not abbreviate my conversation." And that taught me to listen and to put myself in her shoes. And I think another key thing is that we have to let the other person be other. My wife is not me. I'm not her. She's different by design. And there's a great book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I think if we can really capture and appreciate the distinctions that we have, we can celebrate marriage.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you. Just as the conversation goes on here, I also want to say that I think that the principles of making a marriage work whether we're talking about a husband and a wife or a husband and a husband and a wife and a wife, okay? But the main thing I want to say is that marriages work better if we start better. The engagement process is a tradition that that provides us with all sorts of opportunity. It's a good cultural thing. Long engagements, in fact, are good and helpful if they're about something more than just planning a big event, planning a wedding. If they are times of questioning with each other, if there are times of really learning who the other person is and not just enjoying the romance that is there at the beginning. So make the engagement process a time of work as well, because in my understanding, in I think the church's understanding of marriage, you're preparing for a time, a life together. And I've been married 46 years. Either my wife or I are going to go to the other one's funeral. And that's a wonderful thing to think about. And I encourage folk, when they come to sit down and talk with me about getting married in our church, I encourage them to think about that. And at first they go, "Gosh, that's a real downer." No, it's not. It's an expression of the fact that we're talking about growing old together. We're talking about sharing everything that life is all about together. We're not talking about just trying something, being friends, or being in a relationship for a while. No, marriage is about more than that. Marriage is about forever, as long as we both shall live. So we start in a better place. And then also I think we need to make weddings better. We need to give people even, well, let me first say about weddings is don't spend so dadgum much money. Okay? Because you're setting yourself up for not being able to make the good decisions in the wedding that are supposed to be made in the wedding. A wedding is a time of deciding. You come before the church, you present yourself, and you are told this is what marriage is all about. And then each one is asked the question, do you really want to do it? And you should feel free at those times to say, you know, I'm not going to let the pressure of whatever that nagging pressure that's made me feel that this is wrong, I'm not going to let all of that and all the money that's been spent and all of that keep me from making the right decision. Okay? So our engagements need to be better, and our weddings need to be better. We need to start our marriages in a better place.
Thank you. Awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate especially a lot of the practical advice and experience, and Carl, especially your vulnerability on this. I'd say that two Catholics, you know, when they marry, they administer the sacrament of matrimony to each other. In a sense, I don't administer it to them in the same way like I would absolve sins as a priest or celebrate the Eucharist. The husband and the wife do so through the public expression of their consent to a life of fidelity to each other, as well as also a life of permanence until death do they part, and an openness to God's gift of children. And it's their responsibility to determine through natural means the size of their family. In other words, they're establishing a household based on trust and reciprocity as one man and one woman. All right, so one of the challenges today, I think, for marriage in general is that divorce has become institutionalized to the extent that many people are choosing not to marry because they don't want to become divorced. And so they'll prefer cohabitation out of a sense of fear and the trepidation of making a commitment that involves permanence, fidelity, and openness to God's gift to children. I think also another challenge to preparation for marriage is that purity of heart is not something that's valued. And so it's very hard for couples, especially who are cohabitating, living together, to understand what's going to be different about married life. And so sometimes they can approach a wedding as a way of fixing relational problems that often manifest themselves sexually. And so that's not something that marriage doesn't fix that. The other thing is that a challenge, I think, is that these three things, and as a couple pledge each other to each other, that what they're doing is they're pledging to sanctify each other, to help each other to become holy in right relationship with God and with each other. And that's not done by changing the person. So people, you know, a man will marry a woman, well, I'll change her, or she'll marry a husband, I'll change him. Does not happen. All right. The more respectful they are of each other, the more patient they become. That's how they grow in holiness, and that's why marriage is a public institution and not just a private lifestyle choice.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's time to take a break. Let's take a break.
We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you and today's closing statements.
Welcome back. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation so far and that you're not scared now of marriage. It's a good thing, and I think we are hopefully asking you to be thoughtful. And of course, that love ingredient becomes really, really important. So let's hear the closing summations.
In the teaching in the Catholic Church and the Catholic tradition, marriage is a sacrament which a man and woman administer to each other through free consent to permanence, till death do they part, fidelity, own exclusivity for each other, and openness to God's gift of children. It's in the context of marriage that family life is established, and then also that the order and structure of society can come from. We suffer a lot of fragmentation today, and people are afraid to marry, and sometimes they're just ill-prepared for that, in part because we see marriage as a private lifestyle choice too frequently and not a public commitment, which require the support and assistance of a church community to help a couple to live their public and sacramental commitment.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say two things. One, I want to say a good word for divorce. Perhaps on a program about how to make a marriage good, that's out of place. But I do want to say that divorce, if you're in an abusive situation, can and should be considered. I've seen it in my own family help people to blossom where they were being shuttered, they were being squelched. And I have a daughter-in-law who does family law, and she does child custody issues and divorces, and she's in the muck of it all the time. And there are just so many people that hurt each other so deeply. Sometimes that's the way to go. The second thing I want to say just quickly is that if there's a secret ingredient for making marriage work, it's a stubborn insistence not to quit.
Thank you.
Great. A few things for me. The vows are very important, and I think when we stand before a minister or a priest, a rabbi, and we take those vows, those should be taken very seriously. And I'm a firm believer that having God as part of your marriage is so needed, because we have so many mountains that we have to climb and valleys through which we will walk, and we need the Lord's help with us. I want to say something also about the financial. In my ministry, I've seen a lot of people break up because of finances, and we have to be reminded that the vows state, "Till death do us part, not till debt do us part." And unfortunately, we see when debt gets in, people divorce. And lastly, the leaving and cleaving aspect of marriage that the scriptures speak about, it's important. You have to watch third parties. That as a husband and wife, you have to keep that commitment number one. And even when you have kids, you can't neglect your spouse. You have to make sure you manage and massage and nurture that relationship, because otherwise you'll grow apart while doing something good. It's not always the bad versus the good, but it's the good versus the better. So we have to work together as couples, and watch in-laws, love the in-laws, but you don't want your in-laws to become outlaws, and so you want to make sure that you keep boundaries in your relationship.
Yeah, you mentioned, Andrea, about it sounds very scary, and in some ways, I think marriage is that commitment for life. It is terrifying. I remember being terrified myself. That said, after 36 years and having gone through certain struggles, like I think every marriage does, it really is so profoundly meaningful, because I know, as Michael, you talked about the sanctifying nature of marriage, which means, to put it in maybe more common words, hopefully through marriage, both partners become better people, more Christ-like, because we learn self-sacrifice, we learn accommodation, we learn all kinds of things. We learn about ourselves things we didn't know. And I know that I am a much better human being because of my wife and how she has shaped me in a very positive way, because there's someone who can see my blind spot. I'm not just by myself. And we need community to develop that. And so, but to me, that's the thrill to me, and the joy of it is not only the partnership, and I mean, we had kids, that community that's created there is a tremendous joy. It gives back. But just the fact that I know that we're, I hope, better human beings in our relationship with God and each other. So if any of you are struggling, I hope that you go reach out to clergy, that you have your pastor, your priest, your rabbi, a therapist. Ask for help if you're struggling, to get guidance from someone who's outside to help you. And I pray you all have a powerful and happy marriage.
Thank you all very much. Thank you to the panelists for your contributions today. And I hope all of you out there are feeling encouraged. The Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America, we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And now, friends, until next week at the same time and over the very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.